back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Sorry, but I'm going to start the Viking Update show with a little bit of a rant. I'm really tired of people telling me, oh, you have to wait 3 or 5 years to evaluate the draft. The NFL doesn't wait 3 or 5 years. They pick people right now in real time. We're journalists. We work in real time. They make their selections in real time. We evaluate them, and then we get to reevaluate every day or every month or every year for the rest of these players' careers. It's just such a cop-out to say, oh, we have to wait 3 years. No. They're going to decide. Some of these guys are going to play this year. Some of them are going to start. Some of them might be the difference between whether they're good or bad. So let's go ahead and evaluate them right now, Tim.
Let's get on it.
Yeah.
For me, just generally overall, I think they did exactly what they had to do, especially first round. Garrett Bradbury made a ton of sense, especially after Jonah Williams was taken. So I like what they did there. We can get into that in more detail. Irv Smith, I think, is a solid pick. And then after that, I think it's it's a little bit hit and miss, and we'll have to see how some of these players, fit the Viking scheme. Some of them I'm not so sure about. Others I like the fit. So that's just kind of a general overview of what I think, and we can get into more detail player by player.
He's Tim Yoder, publisher of the Viking Update.com. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune. This is one of our football shows at TalkNorth.com. A nice complimentary show to this show is Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insider from the former Viking GM and NFL Executive of the Year. But here we get down in the dirt and evaluate things at a granular level. Let's start with the first pick. I like the first pick. I think he's the right player, the right kind of player, and really what the theme of the draft for me, Tim, was I almost felt like in the past, Spielman had deferred to Zimmer. It felt like in this draft, he was deferring to Gary Kubiak.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I look at it like in the past, I think he really trusted what Zimmer had to say about a lot of defensive players. And not that he didn't this year, but I think, number one, Zimmer also realized that in order for his team to go where he wants it to go, it can't just be about defense. He needs to have a better offense. So I think, Zimmer had that overall general philosophy this year. And then I think, so that allows Spielman to make the picks on offense. And I think Spielman really did take into account and rely heavily on what Kubiak had to say, and also Rick Dennison, their offensive line coach. To me, it just seems like they have more trust, more confidence in this coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball than they have the past few years. And so I think that's why they were a bit more comfortable going offense early. And I think it also shows, desperation might be too strong of a word, but they know that offense has to get better if they're going to, make a deep playoff run.
So what do you think the starting offensive line is at the moment?
Well, I think it's Riley Reif. Then I think you're probably going to have, a bit of a battle at left guard. It could be Pat Elflein. I think he's probably the guy that you would look at mostly there, but Drew Samia, their fourth round pick, I think is a guy that has a chance to compete for that spot. I think Garrett Bradbury, once you drafted him, to me, yes, he has the ability to play guard, but he looks really good at center. And so I think I would move Elflein to left guard. Then Josh Klein, right guard, and I think Samia has a chance to compete for that spot as well. And then you have Brian O'Neill out at right tackle. So to me, one of the reasons the Bradbury pick made a lot of sense is because I think it allows them to do the least amount of switching on the offensive line. If Jonah Williams had been there, it would have been a very interesting conversation. It would have been really interesting to see, okay, do they pick him and then look at moving Riley Reif into guard? But, I found it interesting that when we talked to Mike Zimmer at the NFL Scouting Combine, that he said they have never looked at Reif as a guard. They just think that he has a possibility to play there. So I think that would have been kind of a dangerous move if they would have done that. Not to say it couldn't work, but you saw what Mike Remmers did at right tackle, and then they moved him into right guard, and he wasn't nearly the player that he was previously. So I think this was the most logical move for that reason. And also, Garrett Bradbury is an absolute fit for what they want to do. Number one, he is super athletic at center. He can get out and pull. He can get to the second level and pick up linebackers. And I think of all the centers that have come through here in a long time, he is the guy that can really anchor down, not get pushed back too often. He looks to me, and granted, I'm no offensive line coach. I'm not trying to be, but he looks like he is very technically sound already. I'm sure they'll have to work with him on certain things, but he just looks like he's pro ready right now. And so that's why I think that pick was just the one that they had to make, the one that they should make, and fortunately the one they did make.
Let's go back to something you said, because from what I have gleaned, I had the impression that if Samia made a move toward a starting job, it would be competing with Klein at right guard, not Elflein at left guard. Do you think Elflein actually could be in some jeopardy?
Well, I think some of it depends on just how he looks this year. He had, I think it was 3 years starting at guard at Ohio State before he moved to center. So the experience is there. I just think that he kind of had a down year last year, and I don't know if it was due to him coming off of injury, maybe not quite ready to be there, at the start of the season, and even once he got into the starting lineup, how healthy was he really? So it's hard to know how much of his performance last year had to do with him coming off of injury, or was he just not really the player that he was as a rookie? Yeah, I think Samia probably makes a little more sense to compete at right guard. If you buy into the notion that your left guard, it has to be a little bit more athletic, that's Elflein over Samia. Samia is, and this is one of those picks that where they kept talking about scheme fit. It's got to be an athletic guy. When you look at what Samia did at Oklahoma, he was not this athletic pulling guard. He is more of a strong road grader type. And so while I like the pick because I like what he did at Oklahoma, having watched a few of their games now since they drafted him. I just don't see the athleticism that they were looking for. Now, they said that at the Senior Bowl, he did a lot more of that. And he admitted with the 49ers coaching staff working with him at the Senior Bowl, he did a lot more zone. It's just that I wasn't down at the Senior Bowl this year, so I didn't get to see that. So it's going to be curious for me to look at how they incorporate him in practices and what do we see out of him athletic wise. Is he a guy that can get out and pull and looks natural and has good legs and good balance out in space? I don't know that at this point because in watching Oklahoma, he was mostly, a straight ahead power type scheme. So that to me is one of those things where when you're looking and when you listen to what they wanted leading into the draft, Samia wasn't a guy that stood out to me as being a great scheme fit, but, and frankly, his combine numbers don't really indicate that he's a super athletic guy either. So I'm really curious to see how he fits with this offense and what they want from their offensive linemen.
I've been told I don't look very athletic on tape either, but wait for the transition. I can still look pretty good when I go to Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com, TWILL on Instagram. Great, they always have the wonderful high-end stuff. make you look really classy. They also have the stuff that you can wear to look classy and relaxed on a golf course or hanging around the pool, hanging around your neighborhood. Check out twillmn.com.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
And by the way, I also recommend other Minnesota businesses to advertise on this show. As our network has grown exponentially, this show has continued to be either the most popular or the second most popular, kind of going back and forth with the Russo-Suhan hockey show. This show has a lot of listeners, a lot of dedicated listeners who listen year-round. Get a hold of us at TalkNorthPodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to advertise with the show and reach a lot of people in a very direct way. I love the Irv Smith pick. I didn't really think they'd have a shot at him in the second round. I know that sounds like a cliche, but I actually didn't. What did you think of the pick?
I thought it was a solid pick. The one thing that I question is, what does it mean for Kyle Rudolph? I think a lot of people had this assumption like, if they pick, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Irv Smith, Jay Sternberger, one of those tight ends in this draft, that Rudolph is gone. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think they have to look at his contract and say, okay, are you willing to add a year, maybe two, to your contract, lower your cap number, and then if they can do that and essentially cut his cap number in half this year, then they can go and sign their rookie class and kind of just go ahead with the season and not worry about where they are with the cap. Smith, though, to me, is a completely different type of tight end than what Kyle Rudolph is. They have used him out wide. They've used him in the slot. They've used him in line as a traditional tight end. They've used him in the backfield. And he did a good job, really, in almost all of those positions. In watching his tape, I see a guy that in the run game, when he's blocking, he is best when he's motioning from one of those positions and getting some momentum going. He's not particularly strong and is going to push many guys from that inline position, but he just offers them so many different things with what he can do. I think he is a good blocker. He's not super powerful, but he gets the job done when you watch him. He seems to know exactly where his man is, even when he's motioning across a formation before he's maybe throwing a lead block on an interior run. He is a good zone route runner. I think he has a good feel for the openings. But he's not Rudolph big. He doesn't have nearly the catch radius. I don't think he has nearly the hands that Rudolph does. But just the different variety of ways that they can use him, I think is going to, keep defenses guessing. Despite the personnel, usually you go, okay, they have two tight ends in the game. They're going to run the ball, and both tight ends will be lined up close to the formation. With Irv Smith in there, they can throw him anywhere. He could be a lead blocker in the backfield, and I think he does a really good job watching some Alabama tape after that selection at doing that. They can move him out wide in the slot and motion him back across the formation, which is when I think he's really good in the run blocking game. And if they're going to run a lot of outside stuff, him being on the move and being a blocker on the move, I think is going to help create creases for Dalvin Cook.
How about Alexander Madison? That's a player I didn't know much about before the draft.
Me either, and I've only gotten through one of his game tapes. What I see out of him is, they talked about him kind of being a sort of a Latavius Murray, fill in, a guy that can kind of replace what he gave them. And Alexander, he's not